Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Camp Content. I am stoked to introduce our podcast guest today. Gina Mollicone-Long is an expert in personal development and performance coaching. Her academic background in engineering and philosophy, Gina bridges the gap between science and spirituality. She's an international best-selling author, co-founder of the Greatness Group, and has trained and coached thousands across the globe, including through Greatness U currently. Over the course of her career, which spans back to 1998, Gina has coached and presented to tens of thousands of individuals across 6 continents. Her books, Think or Sink and The Secret of Successful Failing, offer insights into overcoming obstacles and unlocking true potential. Gina's all about greatness, as you will learn over the course of this interview. What truly sets her apart is her training in mechanistic module. There's a lot of words coming out here. Her training in mechanistic models of performance. She's a globally recognized expert in neuro-linguistic programming, and she holds the prestigious Master Trainer Board certification from the NLP. Furthermore, Gina's mastery extends to the field of hypnotherapy, where she has achieved the highest qualification as a board-certified Master Trainer of Hypnosis from the ABH. Gina's credentials don't stop there. She's also a board-certified Master Trainer of Timeline Therapy and a Master Coaching Trainer, both from the NLP. Her affiliation with the HeartMath Institute also showcases her expertise in creating resilience within individuals and groups, while her deep understanding of ancient Hawaiian practice, Huna, reveals her dedication to breaking through any obstacles. Her unwavering passion resides at the intersection of mind and matter, where she meticulously distills her knowledge and techniques into a form that's relevant for entrepreneurs, leaders, and seekers alike. You can expect nothing short of a transformational journey that has the power to change the course of your life. That's a lot of words to say. Gina's a badass who works with people all over the globe. She's spoken on international stages and has helped people break through in ways from chopping up boards in conference rooms to changing their life drastically. So, but I did want to give all that background because I think it's important. There's a lot of coaches and life coaches, but there's not everybody coming with as many accolades. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Gina.
Thanks. I actually like that intro better than the formal one. I'm going to put that on my business card. She's a greatness badass.
She's a greatness badass. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you gotta where the shoe fits, right? So we appreciate you taking some time to hang out with us today and be on Camp Content. So tell us a little bit about kind of, what you have a lot of certifications. You've been doing a lot of stuff. Where did the origin story of that, like, who lit that fire? What made you want to go down this path in the first place?
Honestly, I don't know. It's literally been my whole life. So every time somebody asks me to go back into my origin, I end up going further and further back. So like I'm eventually just going to end up in a past life. The other day, someone asked me this exact question, and I traced it back to like the age of 9. So I've always been, if you're being technical about it, I've always been kind of, I hate to borrow this word, but it's just Bette Midler nailed it, like the wind beneath the wings. Because even when I was 9, I was like setting up showcases for my friends who were like, air quote, good figure skaters. And we did a fundraiser for raising money for Ronald McDonald House or something. I don't know what it was, but I just remember this memory. And because somebody was asking me to trace my coaching origins. And I thought, well, that's when I was starting, because I was coaching them on like how we could do the best fundraiser at the age of 9 and 10 in my backyard. And then that morphed into me lying about how old I was, because I was a gymnast, but then I lied about my age so that I could start coaching gymnastics before I was 14. And then, sorry, that's a bit of transgression, but back then nobody cared. I just wanted a job coaching gymnastics. And then by the time I was 16, though, in Canada, we have something called the National Coaching Certification Program, or we did. I don't know if we do anymore. And so you had to get these levels in order to be allowed to coach. And by the time I was 16, I had 5 level 1 coaching certificates for sport, because that was sort of like appropriate. At 16, I could coach, gymnastics, diving, volleyball, basketball, soccer. And so, but I didn't know that was going to be a job. It was just like what I was doing for fun, or, following my heart's bliss, or whatever you want to call it, and then I became a teacher of swimming lessons, because that was a job I could do that I loved. And then the real world kind of sunk in, and I needed to make more money to go to university. And then when I graduated from engineering and get a real job. And so it kind of took me away from that, not for long, but because I didn't know that that was a thing you could do. Just didn't know. So it really has been my whole life. I'm not being like, I'm not lying when I say that. Like, if I look back, I've been coaching since I can remember being alive.
And then what was the shift though from going so super academic and technical, right, with to heading into personal development and coaching?
So I think the personal development's where I started. Like, I've always been coaching or teaching, right? Like once I learned how to do something, I would try to teach as many people how to do it because, it was faster and there was less effort involved. And that's how I came up with all the things that I do now, because it's how I've always done it. But I was smart. I was good in math and science. And so coaching wasn't a field in the 80s. So I went to engineering school because I was good in math and science, and women didn't tend to study engineering. And as you introduced me, I'm a bit of a badass. So I decided to do engineering.
A little more than a bit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I loved it. And it introduced me to the discipline and a mechanistic model. Like, engineering is designing. And so it taught me how to design, albeit, chemical processes and process control, but still underneath it was this mechanistic way of thinking. But then when you took that and married it with who I was, for me, it was a no-brainer. When I wrote The Secret of Successful Failing, I was literally inspired by reading my undergraduate thesis in engineering, which was about feedback control, and specifically about how the failure of the system is feedback in designing the system. And so when I wrote Secret of Successful Failing, I kind of like jumped across on that. And when I went back to my thesis advisor to help me jump across, he was like, are you crazy? And I was like, no, this really does line up. And then once he got it, he was like, oh, this is brilliant. And so for me, the leap was very obvious, although it wasn't conscious. I didn't do it on purpose. And honestly, just for those of you who've ever done an undergraduate degree and written a thesis, I went back, this was 15 years later, I was reading my thesis going like, what is this even? I don't even understand this. But the principles of feedback, I understood, and control. And so I wrote this book where the back of the cover said, failure is feedback, period. Mm-hmm. But that's how I got into NLP. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into, people who are feeling stuck or playing small, and like, how does NLP tie into that? How does that work on all that?
Well, right. So I wrote this book, all very organic, right? And that's a bit of my thing, and that's just my journey. So like, I go out and I get all messy and dirty and fall face down in the mud and get all kinds of crap all over me so that I can distill it into some like quick and easy lessons to sort of prevent someone else from having to go through all of that. So I wrote this book based on this story, and if you want to read it, read the book. But somebody read the book and said, "Oh, this is a really good book about NLP," and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. and they said, "Oh, come on, are you going to be one of those people who pretends to invent NLP?" I'm like, I seriously don't know what you're talking about. And she like flipped my book over and said, failure is feedback, and I was like, yeah, well, that was the title of my undergraduate thesis in engineering. And she's like, dang, you read a whole book about NLP. And I was like, what is it? So I subsequently, that was enough to like push me into discovering it. And I went and trained with Tad and Adriana James. Tad passed away a couple of years ago. But when I sat in that classroom, I was like, oh my God. So NLP is just what I call a mechanistic model. And it's a model. I mean, if we're really just going to be, as general as possible, it's a model of success and how to replicate success and using the language of the mind. So that's a bit like, basically it's the founders of NLP, Bandler and Grinder, modeled a bunch of successful people and turned their success into step-by-step processes. And I was an engineer, and that's what we do. We turn it into step-by-step things. So you could see how someone would read my book, and if they didn't have an undergraduate degree in process control engineering, they might think that I got it from NLP. And so when I started to learn NLP, I was like, oh my God, this is what's been missing in the translation that I made when I went from, feedback systems to human mind. If you think of it as like engineering of machines versus engineering of humans. And so, after about 15 minutes in the classroom, because it wasn't what I thought it was, but I didn't know what it was, but I went because this person just kept yelling at me. And so, at one point she said to me, like, Tony Robbins. And I was like, I know who that is, but you're not helping me out here because he doesn't teach NLP anymore. Right. But I went and watched him talk. And when we watched him talk, my husband was like, you say, like, this is almost like you guys are like, brother from another mother. And so when I learned it, after about 15 minutes of being in the classroom, I was like, oh my God, like, what else don't I know? I don't know. And so I ran to the back of the room and I was like, I just want to do this training as fast as humanly possible. And so that had me flying all over the globe. And, I had little kids at the time. And I just did whatever it took to get as much of this information as possible because it was filling in all the gaps where my knowledge was sort of missing something. And at the same time, I got trained in hypnosis because it's a very similar mechanistic model, but it leverages different parts of our mind. It leverages a trance state, which is a fancy word for brainwave speed. Okay. So it levels a slow brainwave speed or a trance state to allow, if you get to a slow enough brainwave, I can incept or insert suggestions. And so in the context of, getting your goal or quitting smoking or vaping or losing weight or sleeping better or stress reduction, hypnosis allows us to go in and implant suggestions that are conducive to whatever change you're trying to make. And then I learned something called timeline therapy, which uses a temporal perspective. Again, fancy word for meaning time perspective. So it uses a temporal perspective to allow for the real release of negative emotions and limiting beliefs and decisions that come from the past, right? So, we all kind of know everything, who we are now is who we were in the past. And that's what holds most people back. And so there was this mechanistic model called timeline therapy that allowed us to literally go back and rewrite the past, and not in a metaphorical way, in a very biological way, neurological way. And then that allows for a real change in the future results. And so these three things I got taught all at once. And I was like, because I didn't know it, but somebody was working on it, thankfully.
Yeah, I'm kind of sitting here going, as I listen to it all.
I know, exactly. I'm like, I know nothing. So
I know nothing.
What I really love about you, Gina, is like you're just you're really straight to the point, but you're combining, science and technology and math with like, this neuroscience of greatness, right? Which I think for someone like me, who I'm not super woo-woo, I'm definitely more interested in the science of it, but I understand the implications, right? And so it makes a lot of sense to me. So who do you normally work with, right? Because there's a lot of information there, but like, how does this apply to an entrepreneur? How would this apply if I came to you and I'm like, Gina, I'm stuck? Who do you work with? How does this apply for business owners? What is the real world practical implication of all this?
Right. Well, yeah, so there's generally three types of people that end up in my sphere, right? There's the person, and they tend to be entrepreneurs or really top performers because, like me, they have this like obsession, like they love the science, but they also love the woo-woo, right? So like, I always tell people I have an undergraduate in engineering, a master's of philosophy from the University of Edinburgh. So that's like academically, those two things are extremely different. NLP, I find NLP and a lot of the mechanistic models that I teach, they're very linear. Step one, step two, this is what this is doing to your brain and blah, blah. And then there's HUNA and heart math that are a little bit less, well, the heart math is quite tangible with the data. The HUNA is like completely off the other side, and yet the results are very similar. When you bring the two together, there's magic, right? So the people that there are individuals who just they know intuitively that they have greatness or that they can, they have an intuition faculty that's really strong or whatever. But they also they just love the like how we're getting there in terms of science. And so those individuals have like this predisposition to like loving the process, and they tend to be peak performers who, when they're being honest, are kind of playing, like not playing small, because by anybody's yardstick, they have amazing results, but they know they're only like given 50% of what their total capacity would be. And if we were to unlock that greatness, what would it be? And those people end up working with me personally. Like everything I do is bespoke, custom for them. The second kind of person is a coach who coaches people like this. And it could be any kind of coach, right? A health coach, a business coach, a relationship coach, a sports coach. I mean, that's literally where I started. Hey. Because their job is getting greatness out of others in the genre that they coach in. Well, everything that I teach isn't another coaching, it doesn't replace what you do. It takes what you do and makes it work faster and with less effort. So we in our classrooms, we get a lot of coaches who just want to be better at what they do. So again, but this fulfills my need to like reach as many people as possible, because if you think of coaches as the influencers of my world, then by going through the coaches, and if I make them better coaches by imparting what I know about the process of change itself, then I reach all the people that they coach indirectly through them, right? And then the third type of person is sort of related to the first type of person, where they're like a leader of a group of people. So they're not a business coach or a coach. They're like a CEO or a leader of leaders in a company, usually, or an organization. So they're coaching, but not explicitly. And so they don't have permission to coach. And because you don't have permission to coach, you have to be very good at making sure the environment is conducive to peak performance. And so that third person ends up, it's sort of in a hybrid situation where maybe we do a custom program for their own people, or, I work with the CEO and then indirectly through the people, or teach the CEO how to be a coach. So those are the three types of people that we work with.
So you kind of talked about, the three types of people, and I kind of wanted to see if we could do a little like live and recording kind of session here, because I'm a coach myself. I coach girls hockey. So
it's extra Canadian.
I guess I'll give you a little example this year. Yeah, no, I got to I'm actually going to Canada over Thanksgiving. But so I coach girls hockey. I'm in my third year right now with these girls. And this is the first year I'm coaching two teams. So I do the U16 girls and the U19 girls. And I've had, my U19 girls this year are the same group I've had for the first 2 years that have aged up, and I'm sticking with them. And they've been a very good team for 2 years, and great relationships, everything on the team and everything. And this year's been kind of tough. They're thinking like it's been kind of tough in terms of win-losses wise, but they're kind of seeing my philosophy in coaching now is a little harder than usual, even though in my opinion and my assistant coach's opinions, it's the same. We've always done. I keep the same track going, but it's
you're coaching team girls.
Well, yeah, I get that.
They're literally change incarnate, like literally. Nobody's changing more than a teenage girl.
I know, but now they're all like seniors in high school now, so that could be the issue too. But it's just like I'm doing everything the same way, but some things are getting negative feedback, and I'm trying to figure out how the heck to adjust the way I do things, but also I don't want to adjust the way I do things because it's worked for 2 years with this same group. And like I said, they're thinking I'm being a little hard on them at times, and this, that, and the other. We're having just some issues with some play stuff, and it's just kind of like I've sat in with my assistant coaches like 3 or 4 times, being like, "What the hell is going on here?"
Right,
and how to communicate with them and sit them down and everything. And
what got you there isn't going to get you where you need to go. Yeah. I think you probably. I mean, I don't know, because I need to like look at it in more detail. But what you're trying to do, and this is what a lot of coaches do. I don't have I wish I had a slide available right now, but basically, so if you think of coaching as very generally speaking, you've got a person or a group of people in your case, and they're where they are now. And then you want to get them to, the best possible performance. And that's the Greek word means the highest point. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you use a bunch of coaching tools to get them there. And you erroneously think it's the tools that do the job. And this is the most
Mhm.
common misconception for a coach. It is not the tools. The tools for sure in hockey, you know, you got to be able to skate
Yeah.
and, you know, skate backwards and shoot the puck and lift the
Yeah.
puck and blah, 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 right? But so for sure, you need to know how to do the things you do, but what you're trying to do is like replicate the tools. And what you haven't addressed is that the starting conditions have changed. Okay.
Mm.
Whether you are aware of it consciously or not. And so, there are two things in that little process that I call the Acme coaching framework. It's just my little thing. And in that framework, there are two, you know, carrots, like things you add before you use your coaching tools. It is essential if you want something to change. So, and that means like get better at skating or get better at shooting or winning or whatever it is you're trying to change. You have to make sure that their attachment to the way it is loose, that they are not attached to the comfort zone, that they are ready to step into a new way of doing it. And if you don't do this, then it's exactly like what you said. It's very frustrating because what happens is any attachment to the comfort zone, to the way they're doing it, to like whatever you want to call it, any comfort zone to that first state prevents innovation, change, improvement. And so, and then once they make the change successfully, okay, so once someone successfully makes the change, then the next thing you have to do is basically like a psycho person, task it until they can't not do it that way. So it's like their normal way of doing things. And that's what most coaches don't do. So they're decent coaches. They got good, what do you call it? Like good tools. They're pretty good in their field. You know, but they don't understand this process. And this is the process of change, which sits behind my shoulder here pretty much all the time on my chalkboard. They don't understand the process because they think coaching is about the thing they coach and not about change itself. And this is about change itself. Am I allowed to share my screen? Because I have a quick slide I could
for sure
show that.
Because even as you pull that up, it's just like I do it from that perspective too. But I also
so this is from like my practitioner level course. It's a 6-in-1 training where we train coaches on a bunch of mechanisms, and a lot of them have to do with change. So this is most coaches, right? Identify the current level, use the tools, get to the next level. Okay, that's most coaches.
Yeah.
But here's my model. Here's the Acme framework. Okay. Oh. And the Acme framework says, no, before you implement that tool, you have to loosen their grip on the current model. And that could be done a number of ways, right? This is like breaking it. And so we teach a lot of linguistic tools because a lot of the people that we teach use communication, right? And this is especially important if you're trying to change someone who doesn't, if you don't have permission to change them. So when you're a coach, you have permission to like get in there and mess with people's shot or whatever. But if you're a leader of an organization, you don't have people's permission. You better be a master of language because you're not going to be able to change that situation any other way except through language. There's a video right now that's viral, and it's a perfect example of using language to push something back to the way you want it to go, right? No permission to change, no permission to coach. And so loosening is and a lot of our tools fall under what we call loosening. And then the other equally mind exploding distinction is once the person's done it once, your job then is to make sure that's how they do it all the time. And under pressure, when the going gets tough, when you got somebody in the penalty box for 5 minutes and there's only 4 of you on the ice, like, can you still do it this way under extreme pressure?
So to that real quick, sorry to cut you off. We go by a term, it's called on task, next task. Cause you look at things you can control and you can't control. You can't control refs. You can't control things that happen in the game, but you can control your focus on our job and our task and keeping our mindset straight and everything. So that's usually it's on task, next task. Right.
And the thing is, can they do on task, next task when the proverbial SHIT's hitting the fan, right? So in order to do that, so let's say what you want is a I don't know, a group of kids who can play at their best, even in the worst circumstances. Like the reffing's bad, the ice is bad, they're short side. Like just think of everything that could be possibly. Then what you need to do is put them in situations and require them to perform at their best in those kinds of circumstances. Well, if they're not bought into that, right, then, and they're attached to the way it is, like attached to like always winning or attached to like having the best this or, blah, 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 that, then they're going to hang on to that. Even though your coaching will make them better, they're like, yeah, but I want to hang on to this comfort zone because I kind of like it. And that's just how human beings work. So if there's ever any gain from their current situation, until that gain is broken or turned into, more pain than gain, they're never going to change. And these are fundamentals of change. They're not fundamentals of hockey. They're not fundamentals of teenage girls. They're not fundamentals of winning a game or sport coaching. They are fundamentals of change itself. And all coaches are change, air quote, managers. And very few coaches know anything about the process of change. Enter the process control engineer, right? So that's how, for me, I've been working on change my whole life. It's only been in the last 20 years that I've been able to articulate it in this way.
So I'm looking at these screenshots or these slides and I see Greatness U on there. And so I feel like this is a great time to talk about Greatness U, because all of these resources, as short of working with you directly, of course, but there's a whole lot of resources for this Acme framework on Greatness U. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, while Matt asked me that question, I was like, ugh. And so I just was like quickly going through my computer to find the slide deck for our level 1 training. We call it our NLP Coach 6-in-1. And in that, I knew it was in there. And so I was like, oh, so you're literally just seeing a slide from the training. And this training is for people who coach or people who want to learn how to coach. I mean, you could come in here kind of blind. And if you started learning about coaching by starting at the fundamentals of change, that would not be necessarily a bad thing. But probably you'd need to, after that, go out and find your like genre of coaching, right? But if you're already a coach, then this training just kind of layers on top of what you know so that you become good at change itself. And Greatness U, we teach coaches, we give them certifications, because for some people that's really important. They want to know like who certifies you? Well, you're going to get a bunch of certificates from Greatness U, but who the hell's Greatness U? So then we make sure that a lot of our trainings are accredited by the outside boards, because coaching is it's a non-licensed, unregulated environment. And you don't know, just because someone has a piece of paper doesn't make them good coach, by the way, but at least if something's accredited, right? And what makes someone a good coach is the results that they get, the period. And these programs that we teach help people get better results faster and with less effort on top of what they already know.
Yeah. I mean, the coaching world is a very murky space. It seems to be a little bit more regulated in like the sports world, because, but with the business or personal coaching, it's just the wild, wild west out there. Anybody can call themselves a coach and start charging money if they have good marketing. So,
but sure, but I mean, that money will only be spent as long as the person's getting results. So it's sort of like a self-correcting environment.
That's a really great perspective on it. You know what? You're absolutely right. That's a really,
like, my coaches always ask me when they graduate, what should we charge? And I was like, well, it really depends where you live, but it's about the value you're creating and the results that you're getting, not whether or not you went to this school or that school or have this degree or that degree or this certificate or that certificate. The bottom line is, can you help someone get from A, which is their comfort zone, to Acme? Like, period. Can you? And if you can, what's that worth to the person? Well, it depends what kind of coaching you do.
Yeah. And you see it in sports too. Cause even like the way I approach it is just like, yes, I'm your hockey coach and the wins and stuff are great. But you'll become a better player along the way. Cause I always tell the kids and the parents just day one, just like, third on my list of important things I want to accomplish is just making them better players. It's just like, one is like, when you leave me, I want you to be a better person. Like,
Right.
learn life skills, learn this, learn that, be a better person when you leave me out in the real world, and this, that, and the other, in your community and your school and all that stuff. And then the hockey stuff just comes along the way, because that's what we're here for anyway. We're working on it, but
it's the shared love that they have right now in their lives. But the truth is, this isn't about like making hockey their career. It could be, but it's more like, what's most likely is that they won't be playing hockey at this level for the rest of their life, but the lessons they learn through playing hockey
exactly
is something that should carry with them forever. That's the real impact.
And it's like, when SHIT does hit the fan and you're that upset about something that's going on in a game or a practice, listen, there's a lot worse that's going to happen when you're done playing hockey and at school and in life, and you're going to look at this situation in a game and be like, I was in tears over that.
Yeah.
When I got this crap going on in my real life, like, straight up. Like,
the first book I ever wrote was called The Secret of Successful Failing. You don't write that shit when you're on top of the mountain, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's, but it is through the adversity, what you want is to teach someone how to take adversity in a hockey game, very low stakes, learn the skills of turning that adversity into an advantage, and then map that skill into life when the stakes are higher, right? It's like that's what I always say to people. Why don't you learn how to turn adversity into advantage? And then every time an adversity comes along, you're the only one flipping it into advantage. And eventually, by the way, when you get out into the real world, the people who can do this are the most successful people on the planet.
Everything's always on fire all the time. That's life. You know what I mean? If you expect everything to be perfect, you haven't been paying attention. That's for sure.
Yeah. Like, I show a video at the beginning of this course. It's a runner and she falls, but like the slide that follows it is, when you're no longer able to change your environment or others, then you're forced to change yourself. And that's where real leadership starts, right? Is that once you realize you are at cause of the experience of your life. I did not say you are at cause of the circumstances of your life. I did not say that you can change said circumstances. I said you are at cause for the experience of your life, and that is a choice, right? Stuff's always happened to people. By the way, I got that quote from Viktor Frankl, and he wrote A Man's Search for Meaning. And like, I'm sorry, but if he can find meaning in that, I won't spoiler it, but if you pick it up, he found meaning in one of the most atrocious
circumstances. If he can get through every day, so can I. Damn it. You know what I mean? Like, come on. So for anybody who's listening to all this and getting inspired and getting curious, what's the best pathway to get to you, to either take your courses or work with you directly?
Well, sure. Yes. Yeah. Work with me, take the courses, find me. You of all people know my technology skills are far underdeveloped. I probably need exactly. I need a whole course on technology skills. But so what I've decided is, if I have a link tree and that I keep that up to date, it's got all my socials. It's got our latest and greatest. There's probably a webinar on there right now. It's got whatever course is coming up next. It gets to me. So if you just go to Linktree, like linktr.ee/Gina Mollicone, then I can be guaranteed it's going to be.
I love Linktree. It's so effective and efficient. I don't know why everybody doesn't use it. Honestly.
Well, because there was a point where I was like, okay, so my Instagram is this and my LinkedIn is that. And now I'm on TikTok because they made me go on TikTok. And then there's my website, and then there's my other website, and then there's the course. And there's this like, so go to Linktree and whatever, whatever is your sort of preferred method of engaging,
which I love,
is available.
Because some people might just want to watch some of your videos and dive a little deeper. So it's really great. So as the kids say, get in where you fit in on the LinkedIn and make it happen.
Get in where you fit in. Yeah, like I've been doing a lot of little short form video because, as the kids say, that's about their attention span. So try to cram an entire NLP course into 190-second segments. But I'm doing okay. It's finding the right hooks for people, right? Like I put up this amazing, profound post, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And it's like 6 views, and then a cat falls off a a ledge into a pool and it gets like 2 million views. So clearly I don't quite understand how to do that. But every once in a while we hit the right, stage fright's it's interesting to me because like I speak for a living. So, stage fright's a big one. Conflicting conversations is huge right now. Right. And so it's all there. It's all in there. Like I have 3 rules for leaders and maybe this is a good thing to sort of tie this all together. Number 1, and I already said this, be at cause and know that you are the source of the power in your life, period.
That's good.
Number 2, create connections, right? There's a reason it's divide and conquer. If we divide everybody, then whoever's doing the dividing can do the conquering. But if you create connections, then you will create a web almost. So once you're connected to someone, even if you have something to say that they don't necessarily like or agree with, if you're connected, there's more opportunity that they'll hear you. If you're not connected, no one's listening, right? So create connections. And that is a skill that can be taught. Rapport is a technique of NLP. It's a broken down into steps. It can be taught. Even if you're the worst person on earth, it can be taught. And then the third rule of leadership is, and I have this written down on a piece of paper. It says adapt, adapt, adapt. And then every time I have a tough day or a challenging circumstance, I add another adapt. So right now I've got 400 adapt, 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 adapt. And then after that, adapt some more, and then adapt, 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 adapt. Because the rule of the game, and this is Darwinian a bit, right? It's not the strongest of the species that survive. It's the most adaptable that survives, right? Can I bend? Can I bend here? Or to steal from Neo in the Matrix, it's not, or not Neo, the little kid. It's not the spoon that bends. It's only yourself. There is no spoon. I love that. So sometimes I'll just say that to people who are my private.
They're
clients.
like, she's lost it, people. She's officially lost it.
No, they know what it means. They're like, damn, comes back to the beginning, be at cause, right? So it's like this circular tip. And this is, everything I teach falls into that. That's what I was trying to do with those 3 rules. So all levels of greatness, you fall into those 3 rules. Some emphasize more than others, but the bottom line is, you're here to reveal your greatness, and you
don't have to be a C-suite executive or a coach either. You could just be a person. You could be a mom. You could be a housewife. You could be a stay-at-home dad. You could be a 9-to-5 secretary. There's no rules on who this content would be. That's right.
Right. This, I don't know if you can read this. It says, greatness lies in everyone. This little rock that sits on my little stand here on my desk. Every single person on earth, and I don't mean this facetiously, every single person has unbelievable levels of greatness in it. And the only reason why it's not being revealed to the world is they're not in touch with it. It's not that it's not there. And my job is literally to help them get in touch with it. So I don't do anything. They do it. Right. Sometimes when I'm being kind of self-deprecatingly funny, I'm basically like the polishing gloves, those silver polishing gloves that polish like the silver. Like my job is like, I just polish what's already there. So, I'm a glove on the best day, or a straw if I'm talking and teaching, right? Like it just comes through me. It's not my information. I'm just,
and everybody wants a different, avatar or teacher, right? Like I resonate with somebody. That's why we hit it off our first conversation. Cause I'm like, oh, Gina's not bullshitting and she says what she means and she's very smart. And I'm like, that's my brand of people. Like, but not everybody is a little different, right?
But we are super linear, and yet the way we met was like completely nonsensically insanely nonlinear.
And here we are, like a year and a half later, right? You know what I mean? Like,
so it's like mind and matter. It's like we're totally linear, and we love the science, and we love the logic, and at the same time, we're both totally open to the synchronicity in the non-visible world, and that's what actually caused me to connect with you, right? So. You could have done, I suppose, like a targeting of my love of linearity, and I probably never would have met you. So it was the synchronicity that brought us together. But then, I'm not surprised that we share that sort of intersection, and that's the world we live in right now. So, if I'm teaching the most, woo-woo topic I know, I'm generally dressed like the most business person you could ever see, just to create that paradox for people so they can understand. Like, one of the things that I do is I make those topics accessible to people who they're like interested in it, but they're like, where the hell am I supposed to go? I don't want to go to like some kumbaya meeting where I don't fit in. Right. And so I make those, I'm like, look, let's talk about the non-visible world. Let's talk about consciousness as primary. Let's talk about spirit, if you will. And let's do it in a way that has us understand the only reason why we didn't have science back then is we didn't have the language for it. We weren't there yet. So somebody will say to me, oh, has this been proven by science? And I'll say, well, just because our current science can't prove something doesn't make it not valid. Like, don't mistake the absence of evidence as evidence for absence, because ancients knew a lot of things we don't know, and they got to that information in a different way. And now we're able to prove it. But what if the reason why we can't prove that this technique or this field, what if the reason we can't prove that it exists is because our science is not sophisticated enough yet? If that's the reason, then why are we throwing it out just because our current science isn't advanced yet? Right? So it's a fine line.
It is. And it's a good way to look at yourself, right? Just because yourself as well. Like, just because you're not there yet doesn't mean that you won't be, right? So.
Well, totally. And like on my personal webpage, like not Greatness You, it kind of says right up front, like breakthroughs occur, like we're talking step changes in your life, step changes in your goals, in your performance. They occur when you recognize you're more energy. You are more energy than matter. E equals MC squared. You are more energy than matter. And when you recognize and you know how to work with that understanding, a breakthrough takes place, because it's like unlocked or unleashed, right? Like an explosion. And so that's where I work. It's like you're going to get more results changing, a table if you change the blueprint of the table design than if you like start chopping the leg and sanding the top and doing all that, right? Sometimes you got to chop the leg and sand the top, no question. But you're going to have more impact if you go back to the blueprint.
I love it. You dropped a lot of gems on this one, Gina. I appreciate it for sure. I love it. It's good stuff. Yeah. So, if anybody's watching, go to greatnessyou.com, go to Gina Mollicone-Long.com. Okay, that's right. No, I always call it Gina.com because in my world, that's the only I know.
I wish it was Gina.com, but that unfortunately is a shoe brand, which is ironic because I love shoes. No, it's Gina. That's why I say Linktree. Just go Linktree, man. It'll take you everywhere.
And then, of course, you can connect with Gina and her content and everything else. I mean, she's easy enough to find. She's creating lots of amazing content. She's got a podcast that's getting ready to launch called Down the Greatness Rabbit Hole. So we're excited to help with that. And, of course, Gina is also available for podcasts. You can't see her microphone, but she's got a great setup, a great camera, a great microphone. There it is. Hey!
I like it out of the frame,
thing, right? Just don't mute it. Just don't mute it, Gina. That's all I ask you. Yeah, just don't touch it.
I know, right? Just don't touch the stupid microphone.
I know. So, somebody else did that this morning. But anyway, I digress. So, Gina is really a wealth of information, knowledge, and experience. So if this is intrigued you at all, I highly encourage you to connect with her and do the work, because you won't regret it. I feel like now is a good time. I feel like there's a huge shift kind of happening in the world, like post-pandemic, whatever, there's too many things to even mention, but it's a good time to go with it.
We are being given the opportunity to grow.
Yes,
growth is optional.
Yeah, the alternative ain't so great. So on that note,
nope.
Thank you, Gina, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in to Camp Content. If you found this content valuable, please share it on LinkedIn, tag us up, and of course, go follow Gina, check out all our stuff, and let us know if you found this content informative. So until next time, be excellent to each other. See you guys. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Camp Content. This is Molly.
And this is Matt.
And we are Heartcast Media, aka Camp Content, and we appreciate all of your support. If you found this content valuable, please comment on social media, LinkedIn, wherever you find us, and we will make sure to comment back.
And be sure to go on and subscribe and like on your favorite platforms, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Leave us that subscription, leave us that good review.
We'll love you forever. So until next time, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you next week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.